Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have an opportunity to work on a beautiful reel. This is the original black gold series from Daiwa, and it's a 3-ball bearing reel. It's the BG15, which is a smaller edition. By today's standards, this would be a 30 size reel. The BG's got all kinds of funny numbering, and it really doesn't line up with today's reel sizes, but this would be a 30 size reel. Today we're going to take this reel apart. We're going to service it, make sure that it's ready to go fishing for a long time to come. The reel was sent in by Tom from Massachusetts, and he's kept it in beautiful condition. Says this one gets a lot of fishing. You wouldn't know it by looking at it. So there's a little bit of an issue with the bail. I haven't noticed it, but when we get underneath, we'll take a look at that and make sure that everything is clean and ready to go. This spool actually is like the 4200 series of the spin fishers. It has a button for a quick release of the spool, and you can also remove the spool adjuster so that you can service the drag washers inside. So we'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And well, if you like these types of videos while I'm taking off the pieces and parts, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, use the notification button. It'll let you know when I'm posting videos, and you can see if it's one that you would like to watch. I removed the side cap here to make sure that there wasn't a screw holding the handle in. Since there isn't, that means that this handle is attached by screwing into the main gear, and to remove it, you turn it in the opposite direction of the way that the reel is turning. So it would be, in this case, a clockwise turn. If the handle was mounted on the other side, you would reverse that. It would be a counterclockwise turn. To move to keep removing pieces and parts on this reel, you want to remove the 3 side plate screws. Before I do that, he said he's having a little bit of issue with the bail, and usually that's on a bail that's working like this. Usually it just means some dirt and debris has gotten inside there. You can see that's got a solid click and the like. We'll take a peek underneath, but I think it might just be a matter of a little bit of dirt or just dryness in there. There's 3 screws that are holding this side plate on. We'll go to those next. These are Phillips head screws. So when I remove these, I want to take a moment, just place them on my table to make sure that those screws are all the same size. So the black gold has got a great reputation. They're even selling the black golds today. They're not the same ones. They've changed quite a bit. It's in that evolutionary status of, say, a spin fisher. You have, I guess, spin fishers in generation 7 now, and each one of them, they've made some improvements. They've changed things like the case, the number of ball bearings. Sometimes they've gone to different alloys in the gearing and things like that. But the designs, well, they've stood the test of time. I've taken the 3 screws out of the side plate. They are all the same size. So I'm going to put them into a parts tray. That's how I recommend you do it. Find a strategy that works for you, where you can centrally locate your pieces and parts as you take them off. That way, when it comes time to reinstall, you'll know where they are. The 3 screws are out. We can remove the side plate by pulling out on that. That is a metal side plate. And place that into the case. And you can see we have a little bit of a different approach on this one than we do the more modern BGs, and that this one has a crosswind arm as opposed to a crosswind block for an oscillation system. We want to remove that bearing first. Test that bearing, make sure it's running well. It is. Usually on the other side of the bearing you'll find a shim washer for the main gear. I found it here. Just make a note. And well, I like to oil bearings, so while we're doing the rest of the service, I'm going to just flood that with fishing reel oil, place that into my parts tray, and we'll know where it is when it's time to come back. This is a crosswind arm. Take a picture here. I always recommend that as you service reels, you take pictures. Take the picture here because it's easy to flip this and have this go on incorrectly. When you remove it, you pull the pin. Notice that it looks like, well, if you turned it upside down, it looks like the number 6. or I guess the letter Q this way if you're scripted. But it's real easy to turn it over when you go to reinstall, and that would be incorrect. So take pictures so you know the part's orientation, and you know where and when they came off. I'm going to use a paper towel to clean that off. That'll go into the parts tray. Sometimes you can pull the main gear now without having an effect on removing the axle shaft. We did. We can see it's time for some lubrication. All the lubrication from the prior tune-up, and that is all kind of centered around the axle shaft there, or the gear shaft there. And I guess I had axle shaft on my mind because that's what we're going to remove next. There's a Phillips head screw that holds the transition block on. I'm going to pull that off. Hold that axle shaft block and pull out on the axle. Pull that up and out. Then you can remove the block. And I like to clean the pieces and parts and inspect them just as I take them off. This seems to make better sense that way. I'm going to find a corner of my parts tray so that I can put the axle shaft components as a sub-assembly, so that when it's time to reinstall, I kind of have that done. Alright, well that's kind of melting away there. We're going to go up top now. That may or may not be a 12mm nut. I'm going to use a deep socket for this one. And this one comes off in a traditional counterclockwise manner. Let's lay that off to the side for a moment. And this is your silent anti-reverse that we have for the reel. You can see as we're pedaling out, it's fine. We have an eccentric with a spring that pulls that back in. That's how the anti-reverse works. Take a picture here. That's a good reference point for you. You can remove both the click ratchet, the spacer, and the eccentric as one section, and then that'll give us access to the bearing and the pinion gear. Most of the time you can get this out without removing that anti-reverse dog. Of course, if that anti-reverse dog was loaded with dirt and debris or wasn't functioning, then it would be a good idea to take that off, but you don't need to do that for this. And there's two sets on this clamp. Again, you want to take a picture here. And actually, I'm kind of running into that, so let's go ahead and take that anti-reverse off. No sense forcing anything. If you find yourself trying to force something, you're doing something wrong, and you don't necessarily want to do that. Okay, we're going to just remove this. This is easy to know what the top side is because it has that catch for your piece. And again, that's going to go right back on, so I'm just going to leave that where it is. Take the second screw out. And then take a look. See if that little cap is symmetrical. It is, so it's not going to matter which side goes where. I like to keep it in the up position, so I know how to do that. Put the screws right next to it, and we should be able to pull up and out on your pinion gear. Notice the ramp here. This is the ramp for the bail trip. Everything seems fine there. It has a little metal protector. I like that. It's some of these just have this case that acts as the ramp, and over time that wears with that lever. All right, I'm going to pull the bearing out, spin it right now. That's a good way to test it. It's working fine. I'm going to remove the bearing, do the same thing we did with the other bearing. And this one, unlike the Silver Series, this one has 3 ball bearings. It has one on each side of the case, and it has the bearing up top. Okay, I'm going to find a hard brush for parts cleaning. I'm just going to pull through. Make sure I pull all the old dirt and grease out of the pinion gear. Then you want to inspect it. If you have any questions, get a pick. This one's just one of these Harbor Freight picks. You see some old dried grease in there. Just pull it through. You can use a toothpick. You can use a safety pin. You can use just about anything as long as it fits inside the groove. but we're in good condition with this. All right, well, that's what we wanted to get to. That's the core. So once we do that, take fishing reel grease. In this case, the blue grease I'm using is Penn Precision reel grease. And we're just going to get a good amount onto that and onto the shaft, which is going to ride inside the case. We've oiled the main bearing. We'll go put that back on. And before we go too much further, I always have somebody say, why don't you run a cotton swab through your pinion gear to clean that out. So there you go. We'll go do that. All right. I'm going to pull this off the back again. There's a bearing in this side. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to oil it. Now on the silver series, you're going to find that you have a bushing on this side of the reel. Same thing in the gold series too, I believe. Those are the ones that were the predecessors to the black gold. All right. Just a little bit of old grease here. Let's take care of that. Generally, I'll use a cotton swab to pull the old grease out. In this case, we have a little chunk here. So I'm just using a screwdriver to get in there and do that. Push that bearing all the way back in. Wipe down that case a little bit more. And we've inspected the pieces and parts. We've cleaned them along the way. I'm going to put a little bit of grease into that slide channel for your oscillation block. I will take the pinion gear and bearing assembly, push that all in place. Make sure that your bearing is flush to the case. Again, I've left this up and it's symmetrical, so it's not going to matter which side goes where on that. And I got these two little screws, which will drive me crazy. So if you're looking to get a beverage of your choice or something, you can probably go ahead and do that while I try to mount these screws. It's just one of those little bugaboos that, well, I just know is coming. And for those of you that have remained, I want to encourage you to ask questions. This channel is about transferring what I know to you so that you can do it yourself. And if you do it yourself, it's here to guide you. If it's a particular reel that you're working on, and maybe you're working on one that you haven't found a video on or something, but you're having a problem. And if that's the case, leave those questions in the question comment section. And again, I'll be happy to try and help you out there. The whole idea is to reduce and recycle here rather than just toss and go buy another one. Particularly some of these vintage reels like this one. This is a treasure. You'd be quite hard pressed to find reels of this quality today at an affordable price, if you will. These are just beautiful examples of great engineering. Okay, we've just put that back together, tighten this down. Hopefully you're back with your favorite beverage. We have our anti-reverse dog next and the screw that goes through the carrier. We want to line those up. And actually for this one I can use that screw starter because it helps so much. Dick, one of our channel viewers out in Pennsylvania, saw that my struggles with this, sent me one in. I've been ever grateful to him since I've received it. All right, that's in. We can come back here. There was a stack, so there's a spacer first. If you found that one when you were taking it off and wondering where it goes, that sits right on top of the bearing. Then we have the click ratchet goes next. Now make sure when you install that click ratchet after you've had it apart that the orientation is correct. Make sure that when it lands, the beak is going into that slot and not away from that slot. Next up, we have that hooked eccentric gear that's going to mount onto the post. and then it's going to go through the slot in the anti-reverse dog. So it's sort of like kicking a field goal. It needs to go through the slot there and mount it like that. And then you can test it. Give it a ride this way and pull back and make sure that it's seated into that cut. Okay, I'm just going to peek inside here. This is the one that's got the spring on it, and Tom did mention that from time to time he's having a little issue. I quite honestly think it's just a little bit of dirt inside the arm there, but let's check it out. Pull that out and we'll see. This, I believe this has a coil spring trip on it. Guess we'll find out. I think I'm going to have to take some attention off of that. Yeah, this has a big coil spring, and that's completely functioning. You can see if you've taken your bail apart that the coil spring rests in this little level here, wraps around, and it comes up and seats under the arm. This is working exactly as it should. So we'll just cover that back up. And one of the things that's important in reinstalling that is make sure you go back and tighten that bail arm again as you do that. Sometimes we're in a hurry to see something, we kind of forget that, well, maybe there was an interim step there that we forgot to do on the way back out. So tighten that up. Tighten this up, the bail looks fine. And just again flop it, make sure that it's doing what it should be doing. And over on this side there is a trip lever. You can see it down here. That's what's going to be riding on that ramp that we showed you, that metal ramp. And it doesn't hurt to put a drop of oil in there as well. Okay, we can reinstall this then. Probably should have closed that. It'll be easier with that extended. If you're trying to install this over the ramp, it's going to fight you. Alright, take that, take our socket. Now this is a Mitchell tool, it's a 12mm socket. You don't need to use that, you can use a regular 12mm socket. Or in this case, it's probably got a lip that's close enough that you can get by with just an open-faced wrench. Alright, well that solvent on the main gear is done everything I would hope it would do. It's dissolved most of that old grease. I'm going to clean it with the cotton swab and then with the paper towel. Clean all of that old grease out of there. You want to take your time to clean the grease because, well, if you leave it there, it could be trapping dirt, debris, particles, all kinds of things that become abrasive and start wearing it down. Okay, it's all clean. Check your teeth. Make sure they're all uniform. Check the sides on the peaks. Make sure your gear is not warped. So you want to see a nice stiff peak all the way around on the gear. This one passes the test. Put a little bit of grease onto the teeth. You don't need to put grease inside where we just scraped it off. The only reason that grease got there was centrifugal force. As this reel was spinning, it threw the grease inward, and that's why it accumulated there. A bit of grease onto the back that's going to go through that bearing. Go ahead and put that main gear in. Now we have our post for the axle shaft. That's been cleaned. We put grease into that slide already, so all you have to do is a little bit on the face. That's the only thing that is going to be moving. Of course, it's always fun. I probably should have taken the picture there. I want to make sure that I have that the right way as we come down. That's an easy one to flop upside down. Before I push that through, a light coating of grease onto the axle shaft. Now I can bring that down. Insert the axle shaft into the hole in that block. Sometimes easier said than done. This one wants to fight me. But eventually you get it. And this is a good telltale here. You can see that there is a cutaway on this block so that it doesn't bump into there. So I know I have the block the right way if I didn't. well, one, it wouldn't work properly, and two, you could always go back to your pictures and take a look, or to the schematic diagram if you have that. And this one, fortunately, Tom sent along the box, the original box, with the schematic diagram in it. So it's actually there for my use if needed. Alright, we're tight on that. Again, light coating of grease around this main gear's face because that's where the arm is going to slide. Remember what we said about this? It's going to look like the 6. Slide it over the arm, bring up the stud on your piece, get that in place. You can put a little bit on the face of this too. Then we have the bearing. The first thing we have is that shim that rides there. Then the bearing you can either put in the case like that, or you can put it onto the main gear and slide your case over. Either way, the case goes next. That sounded real nice. You want to make sure that you have a nice tight seam all the way around. And we have the 3 screws that are the same, and they're kind of equidistant, so it doesn't matter what screw you put in first or last. If you had 4 screws, you would want to do like an X pattern or something, just to keep the tension on the case equal. And these are long screws, and every now and then I get a question about using a mechanical screwdriver. Can you do it? Particularly if you have some issues with your hands, maybe arthritis or something. The answer is you can use it, but don't tighten them down all the way. In some cases you can actually crack because those screwdrivers have a lot of torque in them. So leave it proud, leave it something like that, and just finish the last turn or two by hand, and you'll be happy that you did it that way, and probably never see the results of a fractured case. And I can be honest with you and say that I've seen cases come in that are cracked, and I was told that, well, they powered down on it with one of those mechanical screwdrivers. Alright, almost done here. Let's make sure they tighten down. Handle goes on now, spinning to turn the reel counterclockwise. Just a hardy turn is good. Alright, on this one then. So you have 2 ways to do this now. As I mentioned, one of them is the pop-up here. This whole thing should just push through and down and out. There is a drag washer on the bottom of this, so just check that as you push through. Then we'll take the retaining clip out and check what we have underneath. Let's see what Daiwa gave us here. Okay, they've given us 1 fabric washer and 1 flex kind of plastic washer. The fabric washer's on the bottom, and I generally like to grease them. This is like a leather washer. I like to generally grease those. Now this kind of washer setup has been around a long time. This reel has been around a long time. If you weren't happy with the performance of your drag washers, these could be switched over to Carbon Tex if you wanted to do that. These will never wear, but if you want a little bit more grip in your washers, go do that. So fabric washer went in first, and then one of these washers that's round with kind of a D symbol in the middle. That's you got 2 of those. They're called keyed washers. They go high and low. The one that kind of looks like a face with 2 ears is called the eared washer. And after you install the second drag washer, you put the eared washer in. That eared washer fits in the slots in the spool, just like that. Put the last of those in. Bring that second of the keyed washers in. Put the clip into that, just like that. And we can bring this up from underneath. Just like that, and then we can bring this back on. Alright, nothing more to do here than put this on the reel, give it a test. Lock it in. You can tighten this down. Make sure that the drags are doing what they should be doing. They are. I recommend backing them off for storage. Let's see how we did. Oh, that's such a nice reel. It's hard to not like anything about this reel. The anti-reverse is doing its thing. You have the override so that you can backpedal the reel if you like. And of course forward it for fighting the fish as well. Put that back on. That, and then of course Tom said he's having an issue with the bail. We showed you that the wires are okay. We kind of oiled the seams. That sometimes frees up the issues, but I'm not detecting an issue with this one. Well, that's it. That's how to service the Daiwa BG or Black Gold 15. That's a quality reel, and as I said, it's the first generation of several generations of that reel, but it's a great reel all around. And this one's going to fish for a long time to come. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, EMTs, everybody who's dedicated their careers to helping keep the public safe and out of harm's way. And I want to thank you, the channel viewers, for watching. If you like this video, please indicate that. Leave a like in your review, and just subscribe. That's the best way to see what's going on and what's coming next. And if you do that, I thank you for that. All right, I'm just going to remove this, push this down a little bit for storage. It's a collapsible handle. And we'll send this one back to Tom. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.